The Neolithic Revolution was a time of great change in our history. It was slow change, but it was still pretty great. Humans evolved. The first humans believed to have appeared in Africa, and then they migrated or basically moved all over the world. You can see in this map that through tracking chromosomes through time, we started off in the Great Rift Valley in Africa and spread throughout North Africa, going into the Middle East and Europe, and eventually, after many, many generations and many, many years, we cross over into North and even South America. So it took a long time, but humans traveled all across this planet, and that's why there's humans everywhere. We may all look a little different, act a little different, talk a little different, but we all are the same human beings. We've all got the same chromosomes. Now, the first humans, the Paleolithics, were hunters and gatherers. They hunted and gathered their food. Here we see hunters with their bows and arrows. They're tracking the animals. They had to move with the animals, so they were nomads. They moved with the food. And as they would move, they would eat nuts and berries, whatever they could find. And of course, hopefully, if they were good hunters, they would kill, a large mammal or two, or even fish. And this way they could have some protein. Now, the Neolithic Revolution occurred over several hundred years, and humans first learned to farm. And when you became a farmer, you stopped being a nomad, because with the farm, the food was right there for you. You didn't have to go out and chase it anymore. And they also domesticated animals. Early cattle, horses, eventually pigs, and even going to early chickens. They were able to domesticate them, meaning train them so they stayed around their home, stayed around the farm, and they always had a constant food source there, so they weren't so worried about where dinner was coming from next. Here's a video that will explain a little bit more on that. The results of the Neolithic Revolution were huge. First, you had your first permanent settlements, what we would call the first cities, small villages, smaller cities, but they're going to get bigger over time. You also had a food surplus, which means extra food. And as you had extra food, your population went up. You also had be able to sell the food. So now you had economic systems and early trading going on. So food surplus was a big deal. And then with the food surplus, that leads to villages, and then eventually civilizations, where you get large group of people with a common culture, common religion, all working together and living in a similar area. What does it take to be considered a civilized country or a civilization? Well, one, you need specialized jobs. You need jobs specifically, whether it be I build a house, I'm a farmer, I'm a priest, I am the tax collector, all right, even something as simple as I'm the bread maker, I'm a shoemaker. Those were all specialized jobs, and those were very important, and you only could have those with extra food surplus, because if you didn't have extra food, everybody went back to being a hunter and a farmer, because you were always, you wanted to have the food. A central government. Most of the time in early civilization, that was whatever religion was also the government. So the priests, the priestess, whoever the religious people were, would have the most power. You had to have a system of writing. Most of the time it started off being very simple with pictures and symbols, and then it would grow into something more complex like the writing systems we see today. Social classes. You're always going to have in society somebody who's on the bottom and somebody who's on the top. So, and a lot of times those social classes were based on whatever classes your parents were in. You could not move between social classes. They were very strict. And if you were born poor, you died poor. If you were born rich, you stayed rich. You also had large cities started coming up. A lot of art and architecture, most of which was based on the religion of whatever that civilization prayed to, they drew their art for. And of course, organized religion. So you would have ceremonies and people in charge, and it would be an integral part of that civilization's daily life. and public works. This is also called infrastructure, and this would be your water systems. Believe it or not, your early sewer systems. How do they divide up the land? The bridges, canals, roads. It's all the stuff that they couldn't live without, but they didn't know how important it was. All right, public works, you can't live without, but you don't realize it until, unfortunately, you don't have it anymore.